Hey guys, welcome back to Shelf Life Extension. I'm Alexis, and today we're gonna talk about Fallen Kingdoms. So, as you guys know, I was buddy reading this with Mike from Slice of Mike. Hi Mike. Hey, how's it going? So I was supposed to read this in the month of May, and I did not finish it. I got about a little past halfway, and I fully intended to kick it to the curb and not continue with it, but I did in fact finish it as of last night. So I'm gonna talk about it with you guys today. So a little background as far as the book goes. It follows three separate characters, all from a different part of the nation, which is separated into three kingdoms. One is Pelagia, one is Oranos, and the next is Limeros. And it follows Prince Magnus from Limeros, Princess Cleo or Princess Cleona from Oranos, and then a peasant named Jonas who joins the rebellion in Pelagia. Okay, so pretty much it follows these three characters as their kingdoms start to wage war against each other. What happens is Limeros and Pelagia decide to team together to take over Oranos, because Oranos is kind of like the best of them all. They are the richest, the most well-off, and the most profitable compared to the rest. So they kind of have a big hand in how trade works amongst the kingdoms, so they are very much at the top. And Limeros and Pelagia are like, screw this, we're not taking it anymore. Particularly after Princess Cleona from Oranos goes on a trip with her friends to Pelagia to try and get this very well-received wine, and her friend slash fiance ends up killing one of the peasants in Pelagia in self-defense, and then everything kind of sparks from there. Limeros and Pelagia use that as kind of a crutch and as the beginning push to actually bring this rebellion into play. But overall, the entire story and war kind of focuses around this concept of magic, or the kindred, which are actually these four crystals that hold power to each of the elements, which have been lost for centuries, and that it's prophesized that a new sorceress who will have the power to possess all four elements will come into play and set things in motion. And they believe that one of the characters and daughters in this is that sorceress, and so that kind of plays hand in hand with what's going on. And yeah, so I'm not really exactly sure what else to say. That's pretty much it. So I went into this obviously not knowing really what the heck it's about. The back of the book is, gives you some information, but it's just kind of like, oh, okay, it's not a lot. It doesn't give you that too much detail as far as what will happen and what happens, to the characters individually. Just overall, it is just like, oh, hey, there's political intrigue. Hey, there's gonna be a war. Hey, there's magic that is gonna come at play here. And so, hey, that's cool, whatever, that's fun. But what got me the most was how everybody was kind of comparing it to Game of Thrones. And I think that is where I went wrong and it went wrong. So for the most part, you all know that I didn't necessarily enjoy this book. I had such a hard freaking time trying to get through this book. I wouldn't have finished it if it wasn't for the fact that I was just in a reading mood last night. I ended up finishing End of Days for the Penguin and the End of Days series, and I was like, well, I still want to continue reading, and I was gonna start actually pick up another book. Then I was like, no, that's not fair to me, that's not fair to you guys, and that's definitely not fair to Mike. So I was like, I'm gonna pick up this damn book, and by God, I will try and frickin' finish it. And I did. Although I will say, I skimmed a lot of it. I was just picking up the dialogue. I was like, I just want to generally get a glimpse of what's happening and then be done with it. And that was completely fine. I still understood exactly what was going on and what was happening, and was able to finish it and still understand the entire thing. So yeah, I had a hard time finishing it, and that second half definitely didn't redeem it for me. So I ended up giving this novel a 2 out of 5 stars because it was a lot like Outlander for me, in the fact that I didn't enjoy the characters, particularly Princess Cleo, who has a very major role compared to the other two main characters. She kind of takes up at the forefront. I hated her. I hated her romance. I hated all the romances in this. I think it was so emotionally stifling. I was not emotionally stimulated. I didn't care. I didn't want to care. I legit hated them, and none of them got better, and that makes me really sad. Because here's where I'm going to talk about Game of Thrones. You compare this to Game of Thrones, that gives me high expectations. Yeah, I expect murder, I expect political intrigue, I expect weird romance things, crazy, conniving characters, whatever. You know, everything that comes with Game of Thrones. But this, there's a reason that Game of Thrones is so successful and that George R.R. Martin is like the master of fantasy and political intrigue and murder. It's because he creates characters, regardless of how long they are in the picture for, that you either love to love or you love to hate, regardless of how long they've been there. Like just with the last episode of Game of Thrones that everybody's freaking out about. You got introduced to a new character in that one episode and you're like, oh my god, I love this character. And then, oh, she gets killed off. And that's emotionally devastating. Here, you get characters and I'm like, who is this person? What? Okay. And then they die and it's like, oh, I totally didn't expect that to happen. Like, come on. And then yeah, all the characters, I didn't love to love them or love to hate them. I hated them because I hated them. And it makes me sad that I hate them. I also wanted to mention that it was in fact very predictable. Like the moment I stopped, like the moment that it started getting going and it got about halfway, because you're bouncing back from 3 different perspectives, so it does take the time to try and build that up. So halfway, when I was like, I am so done with this freaking thing, I'm so done with this thing, is when Cleo's romance starts to happen. And it's like, what is this? It's the same thing, you see it in everything. And I was like, oh, this is so totally Throne of Glass. And if you've read Throne of Glass, then you'll know what I'm talking about. And the thing is, in Throne of Glass, even if you didn't like Throne of Glass, you have to hand it to her that romance actually bloomed somewhat naturally, right? That naturally formed. This was just instant, like their eyes meet and he's like, you're everything I need in my life, and she's like, you're everything I need in my life. And then of course crap goes down and I was like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. I totally didn't expect that to happen. And then following from there, everything that happens after that, I'm just like, this isn't wowing me, this isn't interesting to me, this isn't intriguing me. I don't like this. And it sucks. Just personally, it sucks that I don't enjoy this because I really wanted to enjoy this. Another thing is just like about the characters is that none of them have any real drive for anything that they're doing. They are not fully realized in my opinion in that they don't have clear-cut ambitions, opinions, and ideals and morals as far as how they live their lives and what they're doing, and especially in the face of the events and craziness that is happening in this book. Nothing. Cleo, in particular, is so wishy-washy. One minute she's like this snarky, sassy, on-point fighter, and the next thing she's just crying, being a whiny little brat who doesn't see beyond her front door. And then Magnus from Limeros, that romance thing, like really? That is so Game of Thronesy, and it's just like, why would you do that? Like, it works in Game of Thrones for a reason. It doesn't work here. Just saying. Just saying. It's like it's trying so hard to put itself at a level that is just absolutely unattainable. It is unattainable, especially when it keeps getting compared to the likes of Game of Thrones. You cannot get there, particularly in a young adult novel. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But yeah, back to Magnus. Besides his romance, he again has like no clear drive for anything. You'd think that his absolute hate towards his father and mother would motivate him to do other things outside of his father's grasp. But no, he just keeps crawling back and doing things that absolutely go against kind of his character, that, or at least what I thought he was at the start. And I just don't understand what he wants and what he needs and why he's doing the things that he's doing. The only character who I see who has a clear-cut ambition and goal is Jonas, because he has a freaking reason to be the way he is and acting the way that he does. Sure, he's being kind of stupid and naive about it, but for the most part, someone did him wrong and he wants to get back at them. Perfect. Easy to understand, easy to relate to, easy motivator. Makes sense. It sets things in motion and it makes things happen. That's cool. But he's the only one, and then again, nothing really happens with him. I'm so sad. I'm so sad, you guys. And I just don't know what else to say or like really what to do. I definitely don't think I'm gonna be continuing on with the series, which makes me again very sad because there's so much love for it and there's so much hype for it. And it's supposed to be a pretty long series and that's so exciting considering it's fantasy and stuff, but dear Jesus, it did not. It just didn't do it for me and it makes me so sad. And it's kind of funny because like when I was talking to Mike as we were buddy reading, I would tell him, I'd be like, God, I really hate the characters. I really don't like what's happening. I'm just not feeling it. And he's like, it gets better and it gets better. And I'm not sure where he stands at this point, but I'm just like, I just don't see it. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that I wasn't really in a reading mood at the time anyway. But a good book can always get you out of a reading slump, regardless of what's happening. That's how I am, at least. Like, even if I'm in the reading slump, like throughout the entire month, even though I wasn't really in the mood to read, when I did read, depending on what I read, I could get into it so fast and be straight back in. If a book isn't making me feel that, then, you know, hey, that's the book. Overall, 2 out of 5. I really didn't enjoy it. I really don't like the characters. I thought it was predictable and cheesy, and the dialogue was pretty iffy at times, and overall, the ambitions and goals of what's happening seems just so trivial and non-realistic. And I think that it needed a lot more complexity and depth to make it something that could be so much more. And hey, maybe that happens in the rest of the series, but I'm not willing to go into doing that because I didn't get a taste of it here. If you want to read this, I definitely say give it a shot because you might enjoy this. Obviously, we didn't, you know, come together very nicely, but, you know, hey, at least I know what everybody's kind of talking about, and now I can say, okay, I'm done, I've read it, it's good. So, overall, thank you guys for watching. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. If you've read this book, please let me know your thoughts down below. If there's any other questions you'd like me to elaborate on, then please, of course, put those down in the comment box below, and I will try and get back to you. Again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll check you guys out later. Bye!
So it follows these three characters, So it follows these three characters as each of their nations. So it follows these three characters as each of their... God. So it follows... Oh my god. I feel super goth today, like I'm going to a funeral, kind of, but not. I don't know, I got a bow in my hair. Earrings, lipstick, and black dress. Anyways, let's do this. Hey guys, welcome back to Shelf Life Extension. I'm Alexis. Ooh!